All right, we are live. Hey everyone, how is it going? My name is Ashwin Kumar Uppala, and welcome back to another episode of Organizer 101. Well, last week we covered everything about partnerships. How do you want to raise partnership? How partners think if they want to support your hackathon. And the weeks before we covered from how do you plan your run of show to what makes hackathons great. But today is the hard part. Today is where you have to get work done. So at this point, you have raised money for your hackathons, you know the plan, you know the mission why you're doing this. Now you need to get the work done. And that's why we have the awesome Cyril here today with us to tell us how do you run the show of the hackathon and how do you excite everyone for the hackathon. Before we get into that, Cyril, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your journey and how's it been so far?
I am currently doing marketing and a little bit of ops at portfolio. My journey. I don't really have a very stellar journey. I'm more of a generalist. I began my career by doing a project management internship. I did that while I was doing my BBA in Symbiosis. And post that, I joined a B2B SaaS company as a product intern, worked my way up to product lead. And then last year, around this time, I joined Devfolio to come in and help with operations and marketing. Fun fact, my first ever hackathon that I ran over here was ETH India 2024. And yeah, it was a pretty surreal experience, trial by fire. There's a lot that you can learn by just being thrown in the deep end of the pool. But yeah, it's been a great experience.
Yeah, your first hackathon was the big one. It's quite a pilot. Uh, okay, so we're gonna break today's conversation into two parts.
Mhm.
I'll ask you questions around operations of hackathon and the marketing. All
Right.
right. So in case you don't know, the portfolio tweets that you see. Yes. So if you want to learn how to do that, well, just wait till I ask him the secret sauce about it. But first, let's start the operations of a hackathon. All right. Now, there's a lot of things that goes into the operation, and let's first start by breaking it down. Let's first start with a checklist approach. So when you have to recommend someone the operation checklist,
Yeah.
uh, how do you look at a hackathon checklist like that every team should have, especially for the students who are watching us right now?
Sure. So with operational checklists, right? The the primary objective that you're trying to run is to ensure that everyone involved has a smooth experience, right? And in that sense, you kind of have to work towards making sure that all the stakeholders involved are happy. To that end, you kind of need to step into their shoes, right? So some of the basic ones are, having venue, power, internet, food and beverages, all of that to be sorted. Beyond that, like even in like an overall point of view, just having access to security, ensuring that medical is set up, you have doctors and emergency contacts and fire contacts in case you're running a large scale hackathon. You have, if you have volunteers coming on, then you've decided what shifts they're working on. Any com systems that you have, like, let's say any telegram groups that you have to do, any emails that you need to send out just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, any walkie talkies that you need to procure, all of that stuff. And besides all of this, like the main thing that hackers kind of take away as mementos, swag. Just making sure that your swag, whatever you've decided, is at the best possible quality that you can afford, and at the same time available handy readily when the hackers are coming and checking into the venue. Just making sure that all of these prerequisites are done will ensure a very smooth on-ground experience, right? Besides that, when you have other stakeholders involved, like let's say you have judges coming in, you need to make sure that they are briefed on how they're supposed to judge. You have mentors coming in, you have informed where they're supposed to be set up, how they're supposed to be mentoring. Um, Sponsors is a really big one. Like, I mean, Denver elucidated a lot about how important or difficult it is to ensure that you deliver or make sure that all the things that you promised to your sponsors are being delivered. So just making sure that that delivery happens. There is a certain level of hospitality that comes along with ensuring that everyone is happy, right? So just stepping into those shoes and kind of thinking in that direction will make you go a long way. Besides that, there's a lot of nuances that come into depending on where you're doing the hackathon, whether the ground beneath you is stationary or moving, as in this is the case with Blocktrain, blocktrain.devfolio.co. Please apply. Um, and yeah, I mean, or whether it's online, offline, or hybrid, like there's a lot that changes in different settings. So yeah, that's a quick overview of that.
Wow, that's a lot. I'll have to like ask you to unpack each one of them one by one. But what? Hold up. We got Sanya in the chat. Says stellar journey, and we already got your fans. That's awesome. Amazing. All right. So, there was a lot to unpack there. So many things I heard that I, as a student, would probably never even think about. That okay, doctors, is that something I would have worried? Because in college we have dispensary, and like, if you have a problem, just go do dispensary and everything is covered. uh, so those are like some really sort of cool stuff. In the previous episode, Aniket also talked about the toilet math, and we just talk about the math here, right? This is where we gotta break it down, and how do you sort of implement it when things happen in the moment. Learning from that, these are things that you recommended. Now I want to know what happens when you miss out on some of these. So if I have to say it, what are the oversights that can happen in operations that come to bite organizers later on during the day, which we don't really realize when we are planning it up?
So, like, I had heard this quote somewhere. I'm not sure who said it, but planning is everything, but plans themselves don't mean anything. So the more you plan for things, the more you kind of sit down, whiteboard, and jot out. By the way, there's a bunch of stuff over here that we've kind of redacted, so that you guys don't see what we're cooking with Blocktrain. But yeah, like the more you think about things, the more you plan things out, the better prepared you will be. But at the same time, there is not a lot that you can do when things go wrong, right? Giving you an example, and that, like, dealing with that just requires an ability to think on your feet. So quick example being with East India, we had a chronic shortage of scissors, if you will believe it or not. I think I spent at least a good 5 digit INR amount on scissors on Blinkit during the day off.
Where did the scissors go?
So that's the thing, right? There is a reason why when you go to Xerox shops or anything like that, the scissors are tied down. Once they have left your possession, you don't really know where they are. And it's one of those pitfalls of not preparing early enough, right? Or an oversight that us as organizers have. Fortunately, in a place like India, we have access to facilities like Blinkit, Zepto. We get a bunch of stuff, on demand. It's really easy. But a very, crucial example of that was when we were in the US and we had to do closing ceremony for ETSF. They don't have Blinkit. So we had to rent a car, go down to Costco, find a person from whom we could like get his Costco card, and just buy like I don't know 200 liters of water or something. Because like when you're erring on the side of paranoia or where you're erring on the side of caution to think through and make sure that you have redundancies for your redundancies, um, you end up being in a much better place. Like it's fine if you have a oversupply of things. It is definitely not fine if you need something and you don't have it. So yeah, and besides that, as far as things that can go wrong is concerned, a lot can go wrong. Man. I mean, porta potties overflow, generators are not working, air conditioning is too low, air conditioning is too high. Um, but yeah, all that matters is how you deal with it because
Yeah.
that's really all that sticks with.
When I think about it as a student, who has limited resources, far less than a global hackathon might. Uh, do you think that this point still stands that we should have slightly more resources or emergency resources than what I would accommodate? Because this sort of leads to two paths, right? I could have more resources, but that will cause me to sort of allow reduce the capacity of the entire hackathon, or I could just break even the resources, but I will have more people coming in. Sort of a chicken and egg problem here.
So, I mean, with university hackathons, the mix of things that you have to work on operationally is a lot different as well. Like more often than not, your venue is sorted, right? I mean, like you don't really need to worry about where you're going to conduct your hackathon. You have your classrooms that you can work with. There is more compliance and permission work rather than there is, like figuring out permissions from police and fire and medical. So the locus point are the people you're taking the permission from changes, but at the end of the day, it's about making the most of your resources, right? I mean, sure, you're not going to be able to give, a 5-star meal for lunch, but if you find the balance between like there is like a lot of emphasis that goes into making sure that hackers have a good experience, and that's why the hospitality part of things comes in. Even if you just give them a sandwich that's been made really well, they'll probably not leave and go home with a sour memory of the event.
Yeah, that sandwich will become like, this hackathon that had the craziest
Yeah,
sandwich. That becomes the
like
highlight.
I remember going to an MUN in 12th grade, and that's why this I don't know where they got it. I still think about that sometimes. And beyond that, like the hackathon had electricity that went away, had a bunch of things that went wrong. Don't really don't really remember all of this. So yeah, preparedness is good, but don't beat yourself too much over it.
Nice. Hold up, my screen.
Mm-hmm. Is
Okay, fun story for y'all. Just happened, just in. Uh, my laptop started behaving weirdly. Tabs started to open. Random things started typing, and I thought we were in the middle of an attack. I was some sort of like browser control attack. My keyboard is in the corner, and one of our friends just like started typing on it, and I forgot to disconnect it, and we were both scared.
Top 10 things that you can't prepare for.
Oh boy. Wish you could have seen it, but yeah. Boy. Okay. Where were we?
So, how do you manage a resource crunch versus ensuring a top experience for everyone who's here?
Right. Okay. Um, Speaking of resource,
Hmm.
uh, this is not something Cyril does alone at a hackathon,
Right.
right? And neither will you. You will have a team of volunteers,
Hmm.
and this is where would you like to share where how someone can manage that team of volunteers? How do you break down the tasks that Cyril just mentioned,
Hmm.
and how do I prioritize what tasks to what volunteer? Because in my experience, managing volunteers is both an extremely grateful but also equally stressful job.
Right. So with volunteers, I more or less look at it as a team of people that you can delegate specific tasks to, as opposed to like an overarching goal, right? And that really helps out with a couple of things, right? One, you can set the process exactly how you want it, and there is very little leeway with as far as how much brain power or how much effort volunteers themselves have to put in to figure things out. And that helps out in a very major way. That it helps volunteers do the things that they're supposed to do. Just focus on what their main responsibilities are, make sure that they're in a good place with respect to their abilities and their comfort zone. Um, and at the same time, you're getting work done in a way without you actively being involved. So top areas in which we actually deploy volunteers is check-ins, is internet management, Wi-Fi management, is in swag collection and management, in general hospitality and security, and just like isolating clear skill structures as well as clear shift structures. So shift structures ensures that no one person is overexerted, because a lot of times what happens is volunteers are not typically uh, experienced operators or anything like that. They're students. They're in an environment where they're here to get exposed to a horizon that's bigger than what they currently have, as well as also learn. And if you put them in a high pressure environment, immediately they won't learn. So just giving them the tools that they need, along with a basic instruction set of what they need to do, and then giving them the autonomy to recognize what they can and cannot do, work with their fellow volunteers, and also have it time boxed so that no one person is exerting themselves. Like, I don't think that rule applies to us, because like we pull all nighters basically every hackathon that we host, because it's our vision. But when it comes to
Also, we get paid for
volunteers,
it sometimes. So
uh, we, we, we also get paid for it sometimes. But yeah, with volunteers, it is more about giving them a safe space to explore their boundaries, making yourself as approachable as possible for answering their questions, even though within the event it's probably a very heated environment and a high-paced environment. Uh, but yeah, just assigning them ownership, recognize them, give them a clear structure of skills and their shift. And yeah, a lot of times volunteers end up surprising me. So yeah, that's basically how I look at volunteer management.
yeah, that's amazing answer. I see Manik in the chat. Hey Manik. Um, yeah, I think we had quite a good experience with volunteers. I think India, some hackathons they grow in a way that being a volunteer sort of becomes like a reputation
Hmm.
that I would like to volunteer at such a hackathon. And I've also seen some hackathons where people want to volunteer because they love the organizer, they love the team, and they just
Right.
want to be closer to them. So one step
Hmm.
closer, being a volunteer there. So as an organizer, creating that space of like excitement
Hmm.
is super important, right? Like
Hmm.
you, like participating in hackathon is definitely a hype, but imagine if the organizing thing looks so exciting that you want to get a step closer.
Hmm.
And I think that also is a great motivation for anyone to volunteer.
Yeah.
Speaking of excitement,
Hmm.
it's something you do very well
Hmm.
in our Twitter
Hmm.
feed. So uh, that that's a segue I tried. That's marketing question. So uh, how so let's get into all things marketing for a hackathon that can build up that excitement. And I've seen some hackathons nail it, some kind of don't invest too much on it, apart from like the internal hackathon, like marketing, class to class we used to do,
Yeah.
and all that for fests and stuff. Uh, but from your point of view, what are some of the just general great ways that anyone can use to tease a hackathon?
Um. Okay. So there are quite a few things that you can sell about a hackathon, right? First is the event itself. Like, I mean, how do you, what all do you have to sell? Do you have the experience to sell? Do you have any sessions from interesting speakers? Do you have any mentors that are coming in that you have only you have access to? Are there any specific topics that you're discussing which are pretty cool? Are there any, like specific problem statements? And at the last or the least of it all is how much bounties you have available. So just to like add a little bit of flavor, one thing I've learned is that a lot of hackathons are interpreted as just like places where hackers or entry level hackers can bounty for. But the biggest prize in my perspective is the access, right? I mean, where else are you going to get access to a Jesse Pollack from Base, or like Prabal from Avail, or anyone else from the industry who are doing and are continuously every day accomplishing insanely incredible things? Let's say you have a hackathon tomorrow where Sam Altman shows up. Is that going to be worth more to you, or maybe a 5,000 rupees gift voucher that you probably get in a price? So just framing those things as they are and figuring out what your price is, right? Um, is a great way to kind of drum up hype for the launch. Besides that, if you're in a position where you've had previous editions of the hackathons and throwbacks, and like going down memory lane posts work really well. And besides that, the like as a core premise, you just need to provide value, right? Value can come in the form of tangible value, or it can come in the form of emotional value. Emotional value is like nostalgia, making people feel good, having those feel good posts and all of that kind of stuff. And tangible value is the speakers, the mentors, the conversations that you have and all of that.
Oh, that's a good point.
So yeah, the like kind of breaking that down and understanding what you're really trying to sell is basically the way that you tease and drum up hype for a hackathon.
Yeah.
Certainly helps to have things to sell though. But yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the simplest thing that I could recommend, apart from the things you mentioned, is like just use our platform. We have like so many tools.
Mm.
Like the first thing is like you get featured
Mm.
in the hackathons page, and then you
Yeah.
start with letting you tell like, hey, we were featured alongside, like you mentioned, alongside this awesome other hackathons.
Mm.
So just use it as a thing
Yeah.
to like market yourself. But when you mention about like these awesome peoples or like sort of important figures that you want to invite to your hackathon, maybe I cannot, maybe I can. They, hackathon things are always in the air, especially
Yeah.
if it's your first time,
Mm.
and there are a lot of promises flying around.
Mm.
And from our experience, things get cancelled, things get postponed, and
Yeah.
you have no idea about it. So, what are the things that one can do to generate FOMO, but also avoid that over-promising part? Because it seems often when you want to generate FOMO, when you want to do something, follow the hype train,
Yeah.
People, organizers end up over promising on a lot of things, and
Hmm.
then things come down due to poor planning, miscalculations,
Yeah.
or just things or so other commitments, other dependencies canceling on them.
Yeah. So great question there. I mean, like as you mentioned, right? There's always a lot of uncertainty when it comes to organizing events, and there are a lot of commitments that get made. There are a lot of commitments that get broken, and one kind of like anchor that you have is to always bank on the things that are confirmed and only discuss verbally the things that are not. So let me give an example of that, right? So for interfaces, the initiative that we're running in IIT Delhi post blockchain, we have quite a lot of speaker names flying up in the air, right? And there's only a couple of them, or rather one of them, that's been confirmed. Um, what we'll do is bank on the ones that have been confirmed, but in the circles that we are in, like as a hackathon company, we're fortunate enough to be in circles where we can discuss things with other hackathon organizers, with our partners, with other ecosystem members, and those build relationships, right? Eventually you get to a point where you can get them on as speakers, partners, mentors, wherever you need them. And it's going to sound cheesy as hell, but your network really is your net worth. And there is a lot more credibility that comes when other people are selling things that you're doing as opposed to you selling things that you're doing. And that only comes by generating trust. And to kind of tie it all together, if you want people that are, if you want people that you want to know you, to trust you, always bank on things that are 100% confirmed. And if you aren't doing that, I mean, Murphy's law, right? As we discussed earlier on, or as there anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Commitments can get cancelled. What matters is the why, right? I think it was Burning Man or Tomorrowland. Frank Ocean was supposed to perform on the final day, and he cancelled.
Oh boy.
And the festival organizers decided to get Skrillex, Forehead, and Fred again to come in and step in and perform. It wasn't a perfect set by any means, but it is currently one of the most watched festival sets of all time. Because that's just it, right? I mean, as long as you're authentic, true, and real with your audience, with the people that are looking up to you, you will earn their trust. And yeah, that's basically all that matters.
Ah, that's amazing. Yeah, very well said. Something that also seems to just work when it comes to FOMO generation is like just following the classic hype trend. I could give two shout out like some of the universities that I follow. There's this very old uh, tech club called I think it's Code Chef VIT or something, and there's no correlation between like that and hackathon that I've seen or anything. And I just follow them because they just create quirky memes. Like any of the stuff that you're probably doom scrolling these days, just add a hackathon to it. Yeah, so there's like so many funny ones that you can just name and. Like all the marketing gigs that you get, all the latest hype reels, and then people just follow it. Right now everyone is creating a version, a model of iPhone 17 Pro with their company branding on it. So just use that and like create your hackathon branding for it. We used to do it in college, following the latest trend in the technology and using that as just hype,
Yeah.
pure hype. And speaking of the social media and doom scrolling,
Yeah.
now it comes to there's just too many right now. All right, every app is adding a chat window. Even Spotify added a chat window now, right? It is like Twitter, Instagram, Farcaster, and so on. But which one did really like should someone prioritize? What channels actually work when the priority has moved from like now everyone knows about my hackathon. Now I want really good applications, right? We had 5,000 applications, 5,000 plus applications for blockchain. That's
5,272.
that's a lot. So we want to have really high quality applications, right?
Yeah.
So what are the channels you would prioritize in your marketing campaign to attract that high quality applications for the hackathon?
Right. Great question. And a lot of like quality ties into the communities that you're a part of, right? So when it comes to Devfolio, like we have a million plus accounts, we have a million plus hackers rather on our platform, and we're in a position where a lot of them are, up and coming, budding hackers, and also a good mix of hackers who have graduated and are now working in the industry, gain some experience, come back to mentor, and that's kind of how the cycle goes. Like they've come back to mentor the next crop of fresh talent. Um, to answer your question on how that uh, quality of applicants can be exceeded further beyond is just leveraging communities. Like for example, with blockchain, our social media did a really great job of getting eyeballs to it. Um, 5,272 is a pretty great application count. Um, but if I had to gauge where the quality came from, it's when we started posting it in our communities and other communities that we're a part of. Um, and then we're also started talking about it in the Ethereum India communities because it's a blockchain hackathon. Um, when we started posting and talking about it from our own personal channels, when the people that we're trying to get as mentors or the people that we're trying to get hype from are talking about, oh, wait, they're doing a hackathon on a train. Um, that's interesting. When that hook just gets set, even the best of hackers can, will decide to put their hacking caps back on, even if they're part of the industry. Um, we have one applicant coming with us who's already established a company. Is pretty well known in the circles. Was actually one of the sponsors at ETH India last year. He's coming back as a hacker just because the format is so good. And when we see that application, it's not even a second thought for us to click or go through that application. We just know it's an accept. And that's what matters. When people that you have seen touch heights come back to doing the things that you're doing now, it is a great litmus test that you're probably doing the right things. And the only effort that you should make is to continue to do the right things.
Yeah, very well said. Something that I think it was deep dived in the previous episode with Denver about managing relationship with partners is what you start seeing making your life in operations easier, in making your life in marketing easier. Historically, what we have seen is we get a great sort of ecosystem of developers is on Twitter, is on Discord, especially student crowd there. And if you're into blockchain, Farcaster, so these are the sort of things that I feel students just miss out. They just ignore it,
Yeah.
and I think it's super important that even if you don't, we don't want like you don't have to maintain a profile, you don't have to post, but you just like see what's happening.
Yeah.
Twitter is not just for like news and politics and
Yeah.
all of that. There's like far more awesome developers there, and these are the people which will overall increase the quality of your hackathon experience. So
Yeah.
just go and give a shot being in this ecosystem, being in these platforms to see how it feels to be like among professional developers and like beyond probably your college groups, WhatsApp groups, and all, whatever that you are using. That's great to reach out to your college audience, but these are some like super important platforms.
100%. And like, if I have a little bit of leeway to kind of name drop a few communities that I
Of course.
personally I'm in and look up to, localhost is doing an incredibly good job at kind of getting founders, giving them communities and distribution. If you're based out of Bangalore, you've probably heard of HSR Hacker House, run by Adi. Um, there are a bunch of Discord servers. The base Discord is really active. If I had to go kind of like further down the Web3 hole, base Discord, all like actually mainly just like the communities of um, individual inputs and projects are really good. Besides that, if you want to kind of stay in touch with the Indian builder community in Web3, especially Ethereum, FBI, Faster Builders India, is doing an incredible job at kind of rallying the troops and making sure that access is not something that is away from you. For women, there are a bunch of projects out there. She5org is one of them. Women in Product was another one of them that a friend of mine had introduced me to. So, yeah, I mean, like, there are communities everywhere. It's just a matter of you being that little bit uncomfortable in the early days to introduce yourself, to kind of feel the imposter syndrome that other people are doing better than you, maybe. But once you settle in or once you find your tribe, it's just like a rocket ship. So, yeah, I highly recommend checking them out.
Yeah, totally. And something I wanted to say along these lines, I think I'm completely forgetting. Yes, that's my next question actually. That's probably the last question that I have noted down for you. One of like, but if there's anything, we'll like go over the chat and see
Sure.
what the audience has asked. But what does a good marketing time look like? And before I like answer this, the reason I say this is also because on Deftfolio we receive applications for hackathons like too close to the dates. Please submit early. Like we have like we talked about this episode two about planning and timelines, and it's the biggest pain point because come on, like I want to help you folks. We want to help you folks do a great hackathon, but if the hackathon is happening next week, I cannot help you. Like there's not enough data, there's not enough time. So it's sort of coincidental with that if the hackathon is happening next week and I just got to know it today, there is some bad marketing happening.
Yeah.
Right. So how does a good campaign look like if you have to do it?
Sure. So, I mean, the more time you have, obviously, 100% all the time. Like, if you have the option to take 8 weeks instead of 6 weeks, take the 8 weeks. Um, but I had to kind of condense or begin thinking about very last minute hackathon, like the minimum amount of time dedicated, I would say maybe 6 weeks. Um, T minus 6 weeks is a good time to kind of begin doing teasers, save the dates, kind of exploring, seeing how many people are interacting with things. T minus 4 is a good time to open up applications, get more support in, round things up. Um, T minus 3 weeks, you keep the momentum going, right? You do partner reveals, you do price pool teasers, you do speaker announcements, mentor announcements, whatever else you can. T minus 2 weeks, use the kind of the time where applications kind of begin closing up. So you can release it in phases, you can release it at once, you can do kind of like a tatkal notification where you open it up randomly again for the people who missed it the first time. But T minus 2 weeks should be around a time where you've kind of wrapped up all the applications that are coming in. Um, T minus 1 week is the logistical info, so the builder guide where we send out itinerary, when you're supposed to show up, where you're supposed to show up, all the nitty gritties of things that you should be aware of. And that, when culminates, results in a lot of people, a lot of good quality people coming to the hackathon. Along this time, there are a bunch of other things to manage, like reaching out to individual communities, tapping in previous guest lists, speaking with people, getting in touch with colleges or other universities if the hackathon is open to them. But yeah, as a general grasp of things, this is how I is like this is how I will kind of look at hackathon marketing.
Yeah, that was helpful. Like that is exactly what I wanted you all to know, or the exact timeline of the approach. This is one of the recommended ones, and I think the recommendation is if you are doing like a sort of 500 to 5,500 in-person hackathon, and in the previous episode we have talked if you're giving a month's advance notice, then like you follow this timeline and whatever he has said, and that's amazing. Like that would be the ideal way for us to know, for the world to know that you're doing a hackathon without having any mess, even for partners and all things, because it literally, your marketing affects all other segments of your hackathon, not just like the audience. It affects the partnership, it affects the operations, it affects the academic calendar that you also have in your colleges. Perfect. So these were all the questions I have. If you do have any closing notes for the future organizers that we might see applying on Devfolio, hosting their probably very first, second, or third hackathon.
Um, so a couple of the core tenets that I live by is that you cannot really plan, you cannot really over plan. So as many things as you can think of, just like think of an alternative to them, think of a redundancy to that, and make sure that you have a plan. Hope is not really a strategy, so make sure that you're in a place where um, yeah, I have people distracting me from the office, but yeah, just make sure that you're prepared, right? It's really easy to kind of just wing it. It's completely fine if you make mistakes, but prepare for as much as you can. And because I'm dealing with ops and marketing, there are places I have to overthink and there are places where I have to underthink. It is not really nice when you overthink a lot when it comes to content, because slapstick usually works a lot better than planned content. So figure out where you want to divert your energy to. And it's not a one size fits all approach. It's not rocket science or like a formula that you can apply everywhere, but you'll find your groove, you'll find your rhythm. And once you do, you're in a position to be a great hackathon organizer. And as always, post your hackathon on Devfolio. It's the best place. Trust me.
Perfect. Love that point. Don't worry about perfectionism. Just do it. You can always learn. These streams are there to help you learn. Our community is available for you to like reach out and learn from each other, and just do it. Following the guidelines that we have said. But yeah, that is it from our side. And thank you so much, Cyril, for making some time. And we'll see you folks in the next one. Till then, all the best and never stop building.
Sweet.